You're tuning into News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi and you're watching this special broadcast of top stories from our studios here in the National Capital Region. And like always, like every day, this is your one-stop shop to grab and catch and understand what the news pulse of the day essentially looks like. I'm taking a look at the expansive long list of news that we have in front of us for you to cover. We will cut across to the 75th day of the West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas. Meanwhile, some heralding stories as well. What does 2024 have in store for you vis-a-vis various presidential elections, climate change stories, what's happening in the world of entertainment and sports? And Donald Trump is one big name over there, even as the Colorado Supreme Court has banned Trump's ballot under various reasons and sections of their federal structure. We will talk about that as well. Rains in Tamil Nadu, there's no let off what's happening on that front. The Navy has been mobilized, the Indian Army has been mobilized, the SDRF, NDRF, Prime Minister has taken cognizance. We'll talk about that as well. After the Bharat Jodo Yatra success, a UP Jodo Yatra, all eyes on that. What is the Congress essentially planning? We'll shift our focus on that as well. But first and foremost, it is the winter session of the Parliament. It is going to continue till the 22nd of December, and some key bills are slated to be taken up for discussion in the Parliament today amid a record number of opposition benches that are now currently suspended. Now, the Lok Sabha is at present considering three important bills which seek to reform the criminal laws. Now, the bills seek to repeal and replace the Indian Penal Code of 1860, the Code of Criminal Procedure, the CCP of 1973, and the Indian Evidence Act of 1872. Now, these particular bills were initially introduced by the Home Minister Amit Shah back in the monsoon session and were referred to a parliamentary standing committee. Yesterday, they were tabled amid opposition's uproar, even as a record number of members of parliament were suspended. Now, the suspension of the 141 members of parliament, visuals on your screens as well, they have been accused of disrupting proceedings in both the houses, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, and their suspensions have sparked debates over the state of parliamentary proceedings in general. Now, the opposition has termed this suspension spree as a mockery of democracy and has accused the government of bulldozing through important legislations without proper debate inside the parliament. Now, yesterday on the steps of the parliamentary premises, we all saw what Kalyan Banerjee did whilst he was mimicking the Rajya Sabha chairman and the Vice President of India, Jagdeep Dhankar. Now, the government, in its response, blamed the opposition for disrespecting the Speaker, like you can see on your screens, and the Parliament itself through what it deemed was reckless behavior by Kalyan Banerjee. Now, this unprecedented move certainly raises critical questions. Questions about the strength of democracy in India, whether the opposition is resorting to dramatic theatrics. And even as this suspension saga unfolds, ladies and gentlemen, the Lok Sabha managed to pass three bills on the same day. Now, the Congress, which is currently left with only 9 unsuspended members of parliament in the Lok Sabha, has described this mass suspension as a complete purge. These are the numbers at the moment. In the Lok Sabha, you have 95 members of parliament that are suspended. In the Rajya Sabha, 46 members of parliament that are suspended, a total of 141. Now, the government has justified its action, asserting that the suspended members of parliament insulted the Lok Sabha Speaker, Rajya Sabha Chairman, and the institution of the parliament itself. 63 members of parliament were suspended during Rajiv Gandhi's tenure as Prime Minister in 1989. This is not the first time something like this is happening. People are saying this is unprecedented. Well, the numbers might be, but the situation certainly isn't. Now, the Thakur Commission report on Indira Gandhi's death was presented in the Lok Sabha. These are some of the previous big members of parliament suspensions. Now, the report had comments about Mrs. Gandhi's advisor, R.K. Dhawan. And well, due to that, opposition demanded inquiry into R.K. Dhawan's role inside the particular case, and there was uproar over Dhawan's part, who was a close aide of the Gandhis. VP Singh, VC Shukla, Somnath Chatterjee, and Arif Mohammad Khan were amongst the members of parliament that were suspended. And this time around, you have all these members of parliament that we were showing to you. And even as you're taking a look at some of those notable members of parliament that have been suspended, Farooq Abdullah has been a member of parliament for more than a decade, suspended for the first time in more than a decade. Ram Gopal Yadav, Shashi Tharoor, Manish Tiwari, some big names from all across the opposition alliance and the opposition parties that have been suspended. This time around, they were demanding an inquiry, a proper discussion, a statement from the Home Minister Amit Shah on the 13th of December Parliament security breach. Meanwhile, you can vouch on News 9 to bring you all the latest details from the parliamentary proceedings. What's going to happen today? Some key bills that are slated up for discussion, even as 141 members of parliament seem to be outside the parliament, suspended at the moment. All right, shifting our focus here and shifting gears a little bit as well from political developments, shifting our focus to public health, because right after COVID pandemic and after the last lockdown, which was about 2 years ago, Kerala's Health Minister Veena George, she's called a high-level meeting to address the COVID-19 surge, with over 85% of cases in the country originating from the state of Kerala. Meanwhile, what's important to note here is that the World Health Organization has on Tuesday classified the JN.1 coronavirus strain and the subvariant of the Omicron variant as a variant of interest. The WHO has called it a variant of interest and said that the current evidence shows risk to public health was low from the strain. Now, the state reported 115 new infections in the last 24 hours alone, contributing significantly to the national total when COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 is being looked at. The meeting emphasized increased testing for symptomatic individuals, and despite 10 COVID-related deaths this month alone, Veena George, the Health Minister of the state of Kerala, assured ample medicine and equipment stock was in place. A recent mock drill assessed hospital preparedness, revealing available oxygen and ICU beds as well. The focus is now going to be on areas like Kochi and Thiruvananthapuram that are experiencing a rise in the cases. According to sources, Union Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia is also scheduled to hold a review meeting today with health ministers, additional chief health secretaries of all states and UTs, and pertinent central ministries and departments. The focus is going to be on assessing the readiness of health facilities and services in light of the recent increase in respiratory illnesses, possibly linked to COVID-19. JN.1, ladies and gentlemen, a variant of interest according to the World Health Organization. Meanwhile, amid the ongoing parliament slugfest, which saw 141 opposition MPs that we were just talking about from both the houses, the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha, the INDIA bloc, the Opposition India Alliance, which met yesterday, sprung a surprise by suggesting the name of Mallikarjun Kharge, a Dalit, as their prime ministerial face. Now, according to sources, Mamata Banerjee made this suggestion, and it was also seconded by Aam Aadmi Party convener Arvind Kejriwal. Now, though Mallikarjun Kharge downplayed it by saying that the focus should be first on winning the polls, discussions about the prime minister can in fact come later. Many believe that this move can act as a catalyst to bolster their chances in the 2024 general elections.
हमने पहले सभी लोग जीत के आना है, जीत के लिए क्या करना उसके बारे में हम सोचे। कौन प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनना ये बाद में की बात है। एमपीज अगर नहीं है तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर की बात करके क्या फायदा है। तो इसीलिए हम पहले अपनी संख्या बढ़ाने के लिए एक होकर सभी लोग लड़ के हम मेजॉरिटी लाने की कोशिश करेंगे। और बीजेपी आज जो और मोदी जी बहुत इतना 1-2-3 इलेक्शन होने के बाद उनको तो इतना घमंड आया कि अब देश में मेरे सिवाय कोई नहीं बचेगा, या दुनिया में भी मैं एक ही लीडर हूँ, प्रचार करते हैं। तो हम पहले जीतने की कोशिश करेंगे और एक होकर जीतेंगे। पहले हमारे को चिंता है जीतने की, और आप लोग सभी उस दिशा में सोचिए, नहीं कि उन्होंने ये बोला हमने ये बोला, ये तो हमारी इंटरनल बात है, उसमें कोई ये नहीं है। जो इंडिया गठबंधन का एक मुद्दा है कि सभी लोग मिलकर काम करेंगे और सीट शेयरिंग का भी हम मिल के पहले जिस स्टेट में हमारे लोग हैं पहले वो लोग वहाँ पर एक दूसरे से समझौता करेंगे। अगर कहीं दिक्कत है या कहीं अभी नहीं बन सकता, उसके लिए फिर यहाँ पर हमारे जो इंडिया गठबंधन के नेता लोग हैं उसको डिसाइड करेंगे। और बहुत से जगह जो हर एक पार्टी एक एक जो है वो ठीक ढंग से है। अब चाहे वो तमिलनाडु में हो, केरला में हो, कर्नाटक में हो या तेलंगाना में हो, बिहार में हो, अब जो मुद्दा है इसका यूपी में वो भी सुलझ जाएगा। और बाकी का दिल्ली या पंजाब का है वो समस्या को भी किस ढंग से सुलझाना, ये भी बात बाद में तय हो जाएगी। तो ये हमने तय करके ये मीटिंग करा। मुझे खुशी है कि इस मीटिंग के 28 पार्टी के नेता लोग और सभी दिग्गज यहाँ जो बैठे हैं वो सभी ने कोऑपरेट किया और कोऑपरेट करके इस मीटिंग को यशस्वी बनाया कि होम मिनिस्टर या प्राइम मिनिस्टर सदन में आइए, जो घटनाएं घटी है उसके बारे में सदन को अवगत कराइए, मालूमात कराइए लोकसभा को और राज्यसभा को। लेकिन उन्होंने नहीं माना। मेरे को समझ में नहीं आता, सदन इधर चल रहा है, ये लोग अहमदाबाद में बिल्डिंग इनॉग्रेशन जाते हैं, सदन इधर चल रहा है, मोदी जी अपने कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी में जाके घूमते हैं। ये क्या है? ऐसा कभी नहीं हुआ। सदन यहाँ देश में रह के और सभी तरफ अपने भाषण देने लगे, लेकिन पार्लियामेंट में क्यों नहीं आए? लोकसभा और राज्यसभा में क्यों नहीं आए? तो ये जो उनकी मंशा है कि डेमोक्रेसी को खत्म करना, अगर नहीं गए तो क्या होने वाला को कौन पूछने वाला है? और यहाँ तक कि 151 लोगों को सस्पेंड करके बाहर जो निकाले, ये पहला इंसिडेंट है कि देश में इतने लोगों को आज तक किसी ने सस्पेंड नहीं किया था। ये सरकार ने प्रोत्साहन देकर सस्पेंड करने के लिए लगाए। ये बड़ी बुरी बात है और इसके लिए हम लड़ेंगे, मैदान में जाएंगे। और जो आज प्राइम मिनिस्टर और होम मिनिस्टर समझ रहे हैं कि हमारे सिवाय हिंदुस्तान में और कोई भी नहीं, हम ही हुकूमत करने के लायक है, ये उनका समझ है। इस समझ को खत्म करने के लिए हम सब एक हुए हैं। एक होकर ये आज बहुत निर्णय लिए हैं। एक तो 151 लोगों के बारे में, और दूसरा जो है सब मिलके प्रोटेस्ट करना। और ऑल इंडिया प्रोटेस्ट 22 तारीख को, 22 दिसंबर को ये जितने भी सस्पेंशन हो गए उनके बारे में ये चलेगा।
And moving on, after cyclone Michong hit Chennai and nearby areas, now 4 southern districts, particularly Tirunelveli and Tuticorin, are grappling with heavy rain unleashed by the cyclonic circulation. The Tamil Nadu government, along with the armed forces, is undertaking rescue operations for stranded residents as the downpour wreaks havoc. The state labelled the rainfall as unprecedented and enlisted Indian Air Force choppers to airdrop relief materials in Tirunelveli. Tuticorin's Kayalapattinam saw a historic 95 centimeter of rainfall within a span of just 24 hours, leading to overflowing rivers and channels. some devastating shots taken by the choppers and drones that have been mobilized. People having to wade through chest-deep waters in the low and inundated areas. Major reservoirs in the region are at capacity, as you can clearly see from the pictures on your screens, due to torrential rain in these catchment-prone areas. Meanwhile, Tamil Nadu Governor R.N. Ravi, he chaired a review meeting with senior officials from central agencies and armed forces, focusing on assessing the flood situation, the extent of the damage to lives and property in the southern districts. Now, the governor directed authorities to mobilize maximum resources for rescue and relief operations. Simultaneously, you have the Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, who's planning visits to Toothukudi from Delhi the next morning. These are visuals where the IAF and the various authorities on the ground conducted rescue operations, rescuing a pregnant lady from a stranded situation in one of the southern districts in Tamil Nadu. Now, even as Chief Minister M.K. Stalin makes it back to Toothukudi, his aim is going to be evaluating again the ongoing rescue efforts and assess the damage caused by the rain and floods in the southern districts, including Tirunelveli as well. From dilapidated buildings, bridges that seem like they're going to cave in any moment, waterfalls that don't seem as serene and beautiful anymore. That's what's happening in the southern districts. This in the aftermath of Cyclone Migjom. More than 200 trains that have been affected in this particular sector of the Indian Railways as well. And the Indian National Congress is gearing up for the UP Jodo Yatra, which is set to commence today in Uttar Pradesh. Following in the footsteps of Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra, this particular campaign, UP Jodo Yatra, led by State Party Chief Ajay Rai, will begin in Saharanpur and conclude in Sitapur, covering about 16 parliamentary constituencies. People have not stopped talking about the success and the positives of the Bharat Jodo Yatra, and some of those filed and archived shots on your screens as well. Now, this initiative, talking about the UP Jodo Yatra, which is going to begin today, coincides with preparations for the 2024 Lok Sabha polls, especially crucial after recent setbacks in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and in Chhattisgarh. Now, the Congress party is reflecting on its performance in the assembly polls, finding solace in its victory in Telangana alone. Now, the Bharat Jodo Yatra, led by Rahul Gandhi, previously covered about nearly 4,000 kilometers across 12 states and 2 union territories, leaving a notable impact during elections in Karnataka and Himachal Pradesh. What is going to be the impact of UP Jodo Yatra, a stronghold that seems to be slipping away from the Congress? If electoral figures are to be looked at, will the UP Jodo Yatra have the same impact vis-a-vis the Bharat Jodo Yatra? Well, we'll have to wait and find out. The Yatra begins from today.
यूपी जोड़ो यात्रा ये पूरे प्रदेश में चल रही है। हमारी ये यात्रा प्रारंभ होगी 20 तारीख से, जो मां शाकुंभरी के दर्शन करके हम लोग वहां से प्रारंभ करेंगे सहारनपुर से, और नैमिषारण्य तक ये चलेगी। प्रयास होगा कि 14 तारीख खिचड़ी का स्नान हम लोग वहीं पर करें, और ये सांकेतिक हम 15 तारीख से, क्योंकि 16 तारीख से खरमास का महीना शुरू होगा, तो 15 तारीख से हम बाबा विश्वनाथ के दरबार में संकल्प लेकर यात्रा, एक सांकेतिक यात्रा 15 तारीख से प्रारंभ करेंगे, और 20 तारीख से इस यात्रा को हम नियमित रूप से फिर वहां से चलाएंगे, जो आगे लगभग 25 दिन तक यात्रा चलकर नैमिषारण्य में सीतापुर में समाप्त करेंगे। और ये पूरी तरीके से यूपी जोड़ो यात्रा इसका नाम रहेगा। जिस तरीके से भारत जोड़ो यात्रा के साथ या उसके थोड़े दिन बाद पूरे देश के अंदर यात्राएं हुई, जो प्रदेश के अंदर अलग अलग स्टेट में हुई, यूपी छूट गया था क्योंकि नगर निगम का चुनाव आ गया, इस नाते ये छूट गया था, उसे हम ये पूरा करेंगे और संकल्प के साथ करेंगे कि उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर सभी लोग, सभी धर्म के लोग, सभी संप्रदाय और सभी जातियों के लोग, सभी वर्ग के लोग इससे जुड़ेंगे और सबका सहयोग मिलेगा।
And West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee is set to meet the Prime Minister at the Sansad Bhavan today, according to senior state officials. Earlier, Mamata Banerjee had written to the Prime Minister seeking an appointment between the 18th of December and the 20th of December to discuss the non-payment of central rural funds to Bengal. Addressing a public meeting in Siliguri, Banerjee emphasized her with Delhi's visit's purpose, which was to reclaim Bengal's dues and address The halt to development projects due to frozen funds for schemes like Awas Yojana, rural roads and various health missions. Mamata Banerjee has urged a focus on development over politics, stressing the need for constructive work for the people. Slipping into a quick break here. Lots more coming right on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Bangalore traffic is an example of something that has gone wrong with our system.
We have more than 50 flyovers in Bangalore city. If flyover is a solution to traffic problem, Bangalore should not have traffic problem.
According to TomTom Traffic Index 2022, Bangalore is ranked as the second worst city in the world when it comes to traffic.
The speed limit at the ORR is 80 kilometers per hour, but our vehicle has only moved 10 kilometers per hour.
What Bangalore needs is a surgery, but what we have been offered repeatedly are band-aids.
Only on the world's first news OTT. News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
Well, if you haven't already downloaded the News 9 Plus application, do download it now. Nuanced and perspective written documentaries in the time that you have. Meanwhile, shifting our focus to the 75th day of the West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas, the latest from the war front.
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
It's day 75 of the West Asian conflict. People continue to run for cover. The IDF continues to expand its ground operations across the length and breadth of the country. In terms of diplomacy, you have the United States meeting with the Qatari mediators and all that diplomatic hurdles that are taking shape. But meanwhile, let's get to the latest updates from the war front. Now, the United Nations Security Council, the UNSC, is expected to vote today on a bid to boost aid deliveries to Gaza. Let's not forget, twice the UNSC vote has already been delayed. Israeli military is advancing in the southern half of the Gaza Strip, according to Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, the chief spokesman of the Israeli military. Meanwhile, around 1,500 tunnel shafts and underground passages have been discovered inside the Gaza Strip, coming across by the IDF. The Israeli Defense Forces has denied responsibility of death of 2 women at the Gaza church complex. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister, has reiterated commitment to bringing back all the Israeli hostages, lot of dissent back at home in Tel Aviv. Israeli ground operations will expand to additional areas. This coming across from Yoav Gallant, Israel's defense minister. Now, Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital in Gaza has run out of service. Another hospital, out of the very few that are still functional, has run out. Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital now joins that particular list. Palestinian Health Ministry has confirmed these reports. Meanwhile, nearly 20,000 Palestinians, including about 7,729 children, have been killed since the 7th of October in this war. Now, sirens were sounded in Tel Aviv on Tuesday as Hamas claimed it had launched a salvo of rockets against Israel's commercial capital, Tel Aviv. There were no immediate reports of casualties or damage in the incident, but the sounds could be heard blaring again. Now, this particular blaring of sound indicates that Hamas does retain longer range rocket capabilities, and the video showed people running along the street to take cover. Meanwhile, rescuers were seen digging through the rubble. Take a look at what's happening on the other side of the fence. This in an attempt to find survivors and recover bodies after Israeli strikes demolished 3 houses, all part of residential complexes in Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Gaza health officials reported that at least 20 people were killed in these particular attacks. Aftermath of Israeli strikes on 3 residential buildings in Rafah in southern half of the Gaza Strip. People running for cover in Tel Aviv, people digging through the rubble to find their loved ones or any salvageable items in southern half of the Gaza Strip. Now, the IDF continues to release various kinds of footages on its social media platforms, especially Telegram. And this particular footage that we're going to put out on your screens claims to show the army targeting Hamas terrorists inside the Gaza Strip. The video also reveals what the military describes as a clinic in Gaza's Shijaya neighborhood, where the army is said to have discovered a shrapnel shell explosive. This is the IDF in action. Just last week, the IDF characterized Shijaya as an area of intense combat in northern Gaza, where Hamas terrorists operate in civilian attire and employ deception tactics. This area is also where the military mistakenly killed 3 Israeli hostages just this Friday. The Israeli military stated that the IDF continues to operate against Hamas terrorist infrastructure and operatives in the Gaza Strip.
אנחנו נמצאים בסריקת המרפאה בסג'איה שנמצאת ליד הבית ספר, איפה שהיה פיצוץ של 2 פירים. אפשר לראות את המרפאה, ותוך כדי סריקה אנחנו גילינו מטען ממגור, נמצא בתוך פח זבל שחור, מכוון כלפי הדלת הזאת, שמעבר לכאן היה את פיצוץ הפיר ואת הבית ספר. נמצא בתוך תחומי המרפאה.
Meanwhile, volunteers in Khan Yunis are working with children traumatized by Israeli bombardments and the ground offensive in the Palestinian enclave. Children residing in shelters express living in fear, with the sounds of drones and explosions keeping them awake at night. Dalia Elvea, a volunteer in psychology and entertainment, mentions that she is attempting to alleviate the children's negative feelings through play at the Jenin school in Khan Yunis.
احنا حاليا في مدرسة جنين الثانوية للبنين، موجود فيها نازحين، موجود فيها عدد من النازحين من شمال قطاع غزة. حاليا بنعمل لهم احنا جلسات ترفيهية او ترفيه بمعنى اخص للاطفال، من العاب، من اناشيد، انهم يفرغوا من الطاقة السلبية اللي هم واجهوها في قطاع غزة من ازمات، من حرب قوية كانت عليهم، من العدوان اللي احنا فيه. فهذا الاشي بيفرغ وبيطلع النفسية او الطاقات السلبية من الاطفال، حتى الاهالي كمان، لانه الاهل لما تشوف اطفالها مبسوطين ومرتاحين ومبسوطين في هذه الاجواء بينبسطوا اكثر، حتى بتلاقي انه الاهل بيشاركوا صاروا معنا وانهم يوقفوا ويحضروا هذه الاجواء.
Just a little bit of a glimmer of hope amidst this heart of darkness. A quick commercial commitment here, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back for more. Don't go anywhere.
ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा.
There is certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Hello everyone, Namaskar. I'm music composer Ricky Cage. 3-time Grammy Award winner and a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. And you're watching me on First Person on News 9 Plus.
This and more, streaming now on the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Delhi has the fastest growing metro network among G20 nations. From 6 stations in 2002, it today has 286 stations. Reliability, cleanliness and affordability have set the template for other Indian metros. The architect of this modern-day world-class marvel is E. Sridharan. Watch the extraordinary life of Metroman E. Sridharan streaming now on News 9 Plus. Download now.
Heralding 2024, what is the new year going to have in store for all of us? Take a look at this. On Tuesday, the Colorado Supreme Court disqualified former President Donald Trump from the state's presidential election ballot in 2024. All this due to his involvement in the January 6th, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol by his particular supporters. Now, this historic ruling under a rarely used provision of the U.S. Constitution marks Donald Trump as the first presidential candidate deemed ineligible for the White House due to engaging in insurrection or rebellion. In particular, insurrection or rebellion as quoted by the Colorado Supreme Court.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6th, 2021 was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
And we are here because Trump claims, after all that, he has the right to be president again. But our Constitution, our shared charter of our nation, says he cannot do so.
Now, the court's decision responding to a case brought by Colorado voters and Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington cited Donald Trump's role in instigating violence against the U.S. government during the Capitol attack. Now, the 4-3 ruling is temporarily on hold until the 4th of January, awaiting a potential appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. And moving on, the U.S. Defense Secretary Austin Lloyd revealed that the United States was leading a multinational operation to safeguard commerce in the Red Sea as attacks by Iran-backed Yemeni Houthi terrorists forced more major shipping companies to reroute. Now, Mr. Austin, who is on a trip to Bahrain, home to the U.S. Navy's headquarters in the Middle East, said that Britain, Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles and Spain were among nations involved in the Red Sea security operation. Now, this particular group of 10 nations will conduct joint patrols in the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden.
The lifeblood of the rules-based international order is actually seawater. All countries have the right to move freely and lawfully in international waters. But that foundational global right is under new threat today from the totally unacceptable attacks on merchant vessels by the Houthis in Yemen. So this morning, we've launched Operation Prosperity Guardian under the umbrella of Combined Maritime Forces and under the leadership of Task Force 153. That operation is bringing together more than a dozen countries from around the world to conduct joint patrols in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden.
And moving on, French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna announced joint measures with partners to halt the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea during a meeting with British Foreign Minister David Cameron. The Houthi militia, backed by Iran, has escalated its involvement in the Israel-Hamas conflict, attacking vessels and launching drones and missiles at Israel from Yemen. Both ministers talked on the need for a Gaza ceasefire, with Colonna supporting a two-state solution as well. Listen in.
The Houthis, to name them, we know that they are often supported by Iran, have fired missiles, launched drones and seized vessels over the past few weeks. This must stop. You have seen that we have decided to strengthen our cooperation to fight against the terrorist threats in this area. Actions will be taken in coordination with our allies. This is in line with what the President of the Republic had expressed several days ago. We must strengthen our operational capabilities in the area to put an end to these attacks.
Britain and France have been staunch supporters of Ukraine, and we will continue to be for as long as it takes. This is the worst example in my lifetime of one country invading another, violating its sovereignty, and we must be absolutely staunch in how we back Ukraine. In many ways, this is like a play that comes in different acts. The first act was the stunning failure of Russia to achieve its objectives. The second act was the brilliance that the Ukrainians showed in driving back the Russians, taking back half the territory that had been lost, pushing them back across the Black Sea. Now, of course, the third act has been more difficult on land, but the fourth act is yet to be written, and we must make sure we write it in the correct way with our friends and partners.
Meanwhile, even as David Cameron was speaking about the Ukraine accession, President Vladimir Putin addressed senior defense officials, stating that Russia is enhancing its nuclear arsenal and maintaining peak readiness of its strategic forces. He cited the West's engagement in what he termed a hybrid war against Russia as the impetus for these actions. Putin affirmed Moscow's commitment to continue its special military operation in Ukraine, asserting that all endeavors to cause a strategic setback for Russia have failed.
Due to the changing character of military threats and as new military and political risks arise, the role of the nuclear triad has significantly increased. It ensures strategic balance of power in the world. Overall, the level of modern weaponry in the strategic nuclear forces has been brought up to 95%. When it comes to naval forces, it's almost at 100%. By the end of the year, 15 years and avant-garde missile complexes will be deployed for service. We need to continue maintaining combat readiness of the strategic forces at the highest level. All the approved goals in this area will be reached without a doubt.
And moving on, protesters set a train ablaze in Bangladesh, killing at least 4 people amid a countrywide strike called by the opposition to press its demand for the government to resign ahead of an election that is slated to take place next month. Details about the number of passengers on the train from Netrakona heading to Dhaka were not immediately available. Police reported that flames were spotted by passengers near the capital as the train approached its destination. The incident was the latest strife sparked by anti-government protests in which dozens of buses and vehicles have been set on fire, with at least 6 people killed since the 20th of October, when an opposition rally had turned violent.
ফায়ার সার্ভিসের লোকেরা এখন পর্যন্ত এটা আসলে নিয়ন্ত্রণে আনতে পারে নাই। 3টা এইটার মধ্যে লাগবে আবার।
And aerial footage from a Coast Guard helicopter on Tuesday captured a volcanic eruption in southwestern Iceland that began on Monday. Take a look at some of these pictures. We'll throw them on the screens. Images reveal lava and smoke spewing more than 100 meters into the air. Does look magnificent, but you don't meddle with nature. Now, do you? With orange lava contrasting against the winter sky in Reykjavik. Now, the eruption on the Reykjanes Peninsula follows weeks of seismic activity, and geologists suggest the lava flow appears to move away from the nearby town, offering hope for all the homes in the nearby vicinity. The eruption raised concerns about potential hazards in the region, prompting the evacuation and closure of popular establishments, including the Blue Lagoon Spa. Authorities took precautionary measures, evacuating the approximately 4,000 residents of the fishing town of Grindavik. Additionally, the nearby Blue Lagoon geothermal spa was closed as a safety measure. However, the Icelandic government, it stated and put out a proper corroborated statement alleviating worries, suggesting the eruption does not present a threat to life. Now, the Reykjanes Peninsula, the entirety of it is recognized as a volcanic and seismic hotspot situated to the southwest of the capital city, Reykjavik. And take a look at this. Alphabet's Google has settled the antitrust case by agreeing to pay $700 million and open up competition in its Play App Store. The terms were revealed in the San Francisco federal court, outlining the agreement with U.S. states and consumers. Here's a report.
People in the US could be in line for a payout from Google over its App Store. The tech giant has agreed to pay $700 million to settle an antitrust case brought by states and consumers. Eligible users will get at least $2 each, and maybe more depending on how much they used the Play Store. Google was accused of overcharging consumers through unlawful restrictions on the distribution of apps on Android devices. It was also accused of imposing unnecessary fees on in-app transactions. The firm hasn't admitted any wrongdoing as part of the settlement. Utah and other states first announced the deal in September, but the terms were kept secret pending the outcome of a related suit brought by the maker of the Fortnite video game. A California jury last week ruled against Google in that case too. The company says it is now working to make it easier for consumers to use alternative methods for in-app purchases. As part of the settlement, it will also make it simpler for people to download apps directly from developers. Lawyers for the states said the agreement would bring meaningful relief for consumers.
Moving on, the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission has mandated a colossal $2.7 billion fine for Binance, the largest cryptocurrency exchange, due to the U.S. regulation breaches. Additionally, the exchange's former CEO, Changpeng Zhao, is set to pay $150 million for permanent injunction, civil monetary penalty, and equitable relief.
Binance must pay billions of dollars in fines. That was the order from a US court on Monday against the crypto exchange and ex-CEO Changpeng Zhao. It approved the fines for money laundering following a case brought by the US Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Binance must give $2.7 billion to the CFTC, while Zhao is ordered to pay $150 million. He stepped down in November and pleaded guilty to breaking US anti-money laundering laws. It was part of a settlement to resolve a years-long investigation into the world's largest crypto exchange. At the time, Binance said the resolutions accepted the company's responsibility for historical criminal compliance violations. Authorities said Binance broke US anti-money laundering and sanctions laws. It also failed to report more than 100,000 suspicious transactions with organizations the US described as terrorist groups. Investigators added the exchange didn't report transactions with websites devoted to selling child sexual abuse material. And it was one of the largest recipients of ransomware proceeds.
And take a look at this. The Bank of Japan has upheld its enduring ultra-loose monetary policy, withholding any indication about its intentions for the upcoming year. This move led to a decline in the yen against the dollar and propelled stock prices upwards as well.
The Bank of Japan still isn't ready to budge on rates. On Tuesday, policymakers made no change to the central bank's ultra-loose monetary policy. That left its short-term target rate just below zero. Governor Kazuo Ueda says he wants to see more evidence that sustained wage hikes are set to keep inflation at around the bank's 2% target.
The prospects are gradually heightening, but in terms of whether the threshold will be met, we would prefer to look at more data and various information.
The bank did not even change its dovish outlook for the future. That dashed the hopes of some traders that it would at least signal an intent to raise rates in the near future. Instead, the bank said it could still take additional easing steps if necessary, adding that uncertainty over the economy was still very high. More than 80% of economists polled by Reuters do expect the bank to raise rates next year, however. April is seen as the most likely timing, though some think an increase could come as soon as January. The yen fell following the BOJ decision on Tuesday.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Top Stories. Lots more continues right on the other side. Keep watching News 9 Live.
उन्होंने मुझे बताया था कि आप चिंता मत करो, मैं आपको भरोसा दिलाता हूँ। फिर ये